Happy Independence Day. Isn't that a great word? You know, I was thinking about that word, independence, and it struck me that we've manifested it in America. We manifested Independence Day, independence from that which was bogging us down, and we moved forward underneath in that consciousness. And for me, on a spiritual level, really Independence Day means our coming free of all our beliefs and limitations, in ideas that have nothing to do with the spiritual truth about us. So Independence Day is a great day to celebrate the spiritual truth and the pathway that we're all on. And that pathway is onward and upward, and out of every limitation, out of every bondage of every sort, until we're just like a beam of light, one with that one that we were always one with, but being it, breathing it, and living that life. So I celebrate Independence Day, and I celebrate it for all of you here, for sharing the truth of being with us. Ask that question every day, what is thy will? And of course, you know the will is always going to be that which is for your greatest happiness, increase. It will have nothing to do with limitations or sorrow or blockage of any sort. And anything that is created under the divine will is going to take place in the greatest harmony and peace and ease. So could you ask for anything better? So it behooves us, right, to hang out with our higher selves. Okay, so last week we talked about synchronicity and what it was like functioning in this very wonderful, harmonious vibration where you think a thing and life flows in front of you exactly as you have conceived of it. And there is a partner to synchronicity that I would like to talk about this morning. They're kind of in the same family, and when you enter the higher vibrations, your life very commonly exhibits either of these two qualities, and that is serendipity. How many of you know what serendipity is? Okay. I think it's like a word we've all heard, and maybe we know, and maybe we don't know. We have kind of like a vague idea. So let me tell you the story. The word serendipity came from the story of three princes, the princes of Serendip. Okay, it's a fairy tale. Now, these three princes knew something about life, and therefore they went out. It's a Persian fairy tale. They went out day after day after day after they had discovered the secrets of serendipity, looking for amazing, surprising, thrilling wonders every day. They would just embark out on a trip looking for something thrilling, not even having any particular destination in mind. But these guys were alert and aware, and they had great peripheral vision. So wherever they were, they had that knack of finding some type of good, some type of gift along the pathway or right where they were at, something unexpected. So now the word serendipity has evolved, and I'd like to talk about its metaphysical meaning and how fascinating it is in our lives. And it definitely takes place in the dimension of the infinite way. It does not take place in the world of the logical. So you have to have that developed inner eye, inner ear, inner being to function with serendipity. I'd like to read you this from Marcus Bach. He says, when he's talking on serendipity, what some people call chance. We know there's no chance, actually. But he says, what appears to be chance is the personal pleasure ground of the God of law, where he seems to be free from official legality, free of certain principles of cause and effect, and then acts with arbitrary kindness and favor. So when we experience serendipity in our lives, some unexpected good, we get this feeling that, gee, something wonderful is happening. We don't know why it's happening, so it feels like a favor to us. He says there should be a day called Chance Day, that it should be made a legal holiday, a time for remembrance and gratitude to those who cross our path in the labyrinth of life, who pass like ships in the night, or who, like angels unaware, come to underwrite and bless the way we should go. A day in which to remember that every good thing communicates itself to whoever is able to receive it. A day to pause with the princes of Serendip and take note of the fact that in the tomorrows just ahead, there will be new faces, new forms, new strangers who will become fellow voyagers and friends of ours. Everything about life points to the fact that we are not alone, that our faith is not static or fixed, that our position in the nature of things is not limited by any sense of restriction. Let's believe it and know that we are in debt to strangers and in kinship with all of life, whose visions are a part of a universal mind and heart. So this is such a marvelous and uplifting statement, for it implies that we are in fact living in a universe where there is a greater design and a greater order of things than our everyday awareness permits. One of the great gifts, one of the key gifts of serendipitous experience is always greater good. Okay? Greater good made manifest than we are conceiving of at the time. With any goal we are in pursuit of, we have a certain good in mind, right? We're in search of something. We're going out after it. And how often has it happened that in the earnest pursuit of this particular goal, right in the midst of it, something greater showed up? Something apparently incidental, accidental, actually reversed its identity to reveal to us, to become the real thing, the thing of real substance and purpose. Perhaps the most significant events in our lives seem to take place in the so-called accidental or spontaneous manner. The real thing showing up while we are on the pathway to something else. So this makes me think that you might call these times like the divine gap or space, where God, divine intelligence, and divine intent shows up. That our goals are merely guises leading us to something greater, like the carrots serving to egg us on to go after something greater, just so we can be in the process where we can be positioned to meet our good. For example, there's Columbus in search of a short route to the Cathay and discovering America instead, a fringe benefit that changed the course of history. Serendipity, the gift of finding valuable things not sought for. It is interesting that another key element in the occurrence of serendipity is that it seems to arise in the lives of people possessing a great fervor, an intense interest, a love for something, a desire that won't accept no, a love for a particular good. It seems that the Infinite One hears more readily and is more ready to supply its good gifts to those who are resonating at a high level of livingness and passionate interest. You know, there's a story of a young would-be filmmaker who was in London, and there was lots of difficulty with working permits, etc. So he came back to America, and he never let go of his desire to, he had prepared for it, he was prepared to be a filmmaker, and even though he went through all of that frustration in London, he never gave up on his desire. So he returned to the States, and a friend of his had opened a restaurant and offered him, said to him, well, you know, you want to come in and, you know, be one of my waiters, you know, knowing that he needed work. So this guy was very released and very flowing and not fixed, and he never gave up his dream, nor did he have any kind of control or, you know, hard control on it. So he was in high faith. And he went to work, and every day, you know, for the next 6 months, he worked with this, you know, white-haired gentleman. You know, would come in every day for his coffee, whatever, and they would, he would wait on him. So down the line, they got to be friends, and the white-haired gentleman revealed to him that he was, in fact, one of the biggest film producers. Okay? Serendipity. Serendipity. Life had placed the two of them together. The divine, by means of his freedom and just flowing along, not taking no for an answer, flowing along with life, not trying to judgment, the gift came forth in a very natural, harmonious, serendipitous way. And soon, you know, shortly after that, and this is a true story, you know, his name appeared as the lead director, not an assistant, but the director on this man's film. So that's a wonderful story. So God had something in mind, clearly, wouldn't you say? Okay. So we see that it's very important for us to find the thing that we love to do and go after it. Pursue it with our all. And out of this immersion in good shall come the outer evidence. So this is very exciting and opens the doorway to infinite possibilities and fulfillments. And how many scientists have pursued an idea, an investigation, and been rewarded with the gift of sudden discovery of a miracle cure or a profound understanding, incidental, sideline to what they were seeking, or was it? How multifaceted are the faces of God? Another component of serendipity, now I know you're going to like this word, is called apokatastasis. I read this in Marcus Bach's book, and this word, although it's a very weighty word, has a great and very refined meaning. This is a word that belongs to those who possess that very refined talent, and for those who live in the absolute dimension of absolute faith. So when you're in this dimension of absolute faith in what you believe, you are operating this factor of apokatastasis. And it is the conviction that in every seed of seeming tragedy is hidden the fruit of glory and reward. Bach calls his formula the feed-forward formula. That means jump out of the appearance that you're seeing or witnessing at the present, jump out of that appearance and fast forward your mind, your visioning power to that greater good that might perhaps be coming out of the situation. I call it divine foresight. I decided at one time, I noticed, at one point in my development as a spiritual being, I said, I am so tired of going through an event, and in the moment suffering and going through it and all the throes of the event, and then a year later, you look back, in having hindsight, you look back and you say, oh, now I know why it happened. Oh, thank God it happened that way. Thank God I didn't get what I wanted. And yet, we put ourselves through that year or so of misery or whatever it is. And I have promised myself from that point onward, I said, never, never again will I look back and see that I put myself through unnecessary misery over anything. And I am going to practice the talent of divine foresight. I am going to know as soon as something happens to me that something great is coming about for me. I'm not going to wait for the proof. I know I always get it. Ultimately, I always get it. I'm going to practice it right then and there while the appearance is going on and the rest seems invisible. So it's a wonderful talent, and it makes you extremely powerful from the spiritual point of view. It keeps you very clear and renders you much strength and harmony with the universe when you're thinking this way. Okay, another thing is we call it blessing a thing. Divine foresight, blessing a thing as soon as it happens, and so then we're like alchemists. It begins to turn and to reveal to us a hidden good. We're like mental alchemists. So we are right away claiming the presence of greater good, right when the seeming appearances are taking place. And Bach tells a story of a young man of nobility. He was a sahib, something, right? And he was very wealthy, very handsome guy, and he had a fantastic estate or home, at the foot of the river. And one day he comes to the princes of Serendip, and he's very, very upset. And he says, Princess, my home has been flooded. This river never flooded. It just happened to flood at the time that this guy built his home and spent all his money and seemingly had lost everything. So the prince then says, apokatastasis, Sahib, right? And he knew what that meant. So he went off, and about a year or two later, the princes were invited to dinner at the Sahib's new home, which was raised up on a level above, on the same river, but raised up in the mountain away. And he was filled with gratitude, and he said, Princess, I am in such gratitude to you, for you saved me emotionally by telling me this word. I want to tell you that I now have a greater mansion. I was led to higher ground, and my land is filled with precious agates. So I am wealthier than I have ever been before. Now, if this river had not flooded out his house and the divine design had prompted him to seek further, he would have rested where he was, right? Not experiencing all the abundance that was really God had in mind. The unlimited one, the great I am, had in mind for this beautiful soul to experience. So I think it's such a wonderful story and something so valuable for all of us to keep in mind, because the appearances go on and on and on. There's never a time when they're not. So our spiritual, the hidden thing is that to develop this spiritual high talent, that this transcendent power of being able to move beyond appearances. And then you see how the earth, everything moves with you to accompany with you with angels or manifestations of good. Okay, so we send, in that moment, we send our thoughts on a shaft, a light beam of faith into the tomorrow, where the full meaning of today becomes apparent. Fast forward, zip that film forward, feed forward formula. And therefore, we bypass the pitfalls and debilitations of human despair. We rise out of the ashes with the divine, keeping company on high ground, within, in consciousness within, till all good rises to meet us right where we are. So here on this high ground, we are one with God, understanding divine nature, which can be only greater good for us, only and always, for we are its own, understanding divine intent. And a mind like this, a heart like this, draws all good to it like a great magnet. And all good comes in optimum measure. So let us practice claiming our hidden, unseen treasures right now, seeing with those mystical, masterful eyes, the inner eye of the infinite. See right where we are, and we shall become indomitable manifestors of good, one with all. So we see that in this God vibration of serendipitous increase, we are developing divine peripheral vision, always perceiving the universe from within as total, whole, complete, and perfect, seeing through and beyond appearances, eliminating constrictive, limited, surface, negative judgments of the moment, always sweeping up that gross matter of emotions and experience in our great consciousness of good. We practice seeing the right side of things, a powerful spiritual talent. You know, not saying, oh, I went to a lecture the other day and it was a bore. I got nothing out of it. I mean, how often do we, unconsciously use these words, right? But completing our sayings for ourselves with some additional, always name some additional accumulation of good for yourself. Practice looking for that one iota of good and build on that. Take it with you, claim it, and build your life as an accumulation of good and forget about the rest. For example, the lecture was a bore, but I got the one incomparable pearl of wisdom. I always get what I came for. I always get the good that is there for me. So you see how in our inner bodies we build a consciousness of good and more and more and more. And how powerful this is. And this is how you become a magnet for incredible increase. So in whatever you are doing, always be aware of your silent, magnificent, divine partner. Be available to do the unexpected. Surprise yourself. For spirit suffocates in the clutches of routine. When you are embarking on any new journey, any new goal, towards any destination, don't plan too tightly. Consciously permit the divine design to play its part, to lead you into unforeseen adventures of increase. Shake up fixed habits and fixed routines. Do it differently. I'll just tell this one more story. One Christmas, normally on Christmas I like to go to my parents, visit my parents. And this time I was in California, so normally I like to take the plane and visit them in the East Coast, and I love them very much. And this particular time, I needed something for me, something different. I needed something to lift me up. As much as I love them, something for me. So I said to myself, okay, this Christmas I'm just not going to plan anything, and I'm just going to give thanks to God for something wonderful and new for me that is regenerative to me. And I just let it go, and I meditated upon this, and I just released it. And already I was beginning to feel better because I was at a period of kind of low energy at that point, and I needed this replenishment. And so what happens is two friends of mine who were clients and also friends, who are producers in the film industry and doing very well, they asked me to go out for, to celebrate and have some dinner with them. And I did, and at that dinner we were going to say goodbye. They were going to go to New York, and I was going to stay on the West Coast. So we had a very magnificent dinner at the Westwood Marquis and had a great time. And early on, they informed me that they were not going to New York, that some business appointments had come up for the husband in Boston, and actually they were going to go to Las Vegas. And so they said to me, Linda, would you come with us to Las Vegas? We'll give you your own suite, and we'll go see the Grand Canyon, and we'll do all this stuff, and won't that be fun? And I said, that sounds just great to me. So they handed me my round-trip tickets, went in a private plane, and went to Vegas, and they gave me a suite in one of the most magnificent hotels. And, just there as friends, and the husband had to pop off to Boston, so I was there to accompany the wife, my friend. And we didn't do any gambling, although it was lots of fun to see the lights going off and on. But so you see, in the midst of the city of lights, right, one of the noisiest city with the slot machines and this and that, in the midst of the city of lights, I had my beautiful, large, private suite. And that's where I spent my time. Then we went and we hired a private plane, and we went into the Grand Canyon with a baby plane. Then we went to the Hoover Dam. So we saw all these, and for me it was one of the most, magnificent experiences spiritually. So I was so totally regenerated, in the city of lights. And I kept saying, I need something light, something joyous, right? So it sent me right to the city of lights, right? And who needed to gamble with friends like these? So it was great. And had I not, had I been on myself and said, no, but really you should, and this and that, and I would have bogged myself down, and there I would have been missing this glorious adventure. So always remember to leave God room, space, leave the God space available. Don't get too tightly planned there, because you may be missing something fabulous. Okay? So we permit this divine architect to bless us with such jewels of increase. So let's always leave this God space, this room in our consciousness for something greater to show up. And lastly, I'd just like to clarify the purposes of serendipity, the divine purposes, why they happen. One of the reasons it may be something happening for your growth or for your guidance. For instance, if you'll look within synchronized events that you've experienced, you'll see really how often perhaps you've been seeking guidance, and then you suddenly see words on a license plate, or words in a book, or someone comes along and just walking by you and says a word, and you happen to catch it, and that's the absolute perfect right word for you then. Or you encounter someone. These are the magnificent angels, strangers, spirit on your pathway, showing up perhaps maybe just for a brief moment, but in that moment a shift is taking place. There was Schopenhauer, when he was young, he was very scorned at, laughed at, derided. He was funny looking. He was a hermit, He never was out there with people, and the children would always laugh at him. So one day Goethe is there, who Schopenhauer did not know at that time, and he chided the children and said, you don't know what you're doing. This child shall surpass you all. And later on, Goethe and Schopenhauer became very good friends, but that was a case of someone coming in, changing his opinion of himself just by a few words, and it changed everything for Schopenhauer radically. And another reason is maybe because we've drawn the event through unconscious or conscious forces within. Just by means of what we've been thinking, we draw the thing to us. Like my thinking newspaper, on the highway thinking, gee, I'd like a newspaper, and then I know some of you have heard this story, that I'm on the West Side Highway, and I just run through my mind, gee, I should get, a copy of the New York Times. I want to look at a certain section in it. We stopped the car on a grassy patch, just to clean off the windshield, and there are 2 brand new newspapers right there, untouched, no store around, nothing around, just manifest right there on the grass. So sometimes it's as a result of what we have brought our consciousness to think about, and then it shows up. And the third and last reason I'd like to share with you is that what happened not for your benefit, although I think everything is always for mutual benefit, but for the benefit and profit of someone else. And how often do we think of this? We're aware of when things happen and we receive the benefit. But in the divine tapestry, everyone is included. So very often we're playing a role, some type of role, for someone else's good. And, Bach tells a story of a minister, who was giving a talk on a rainy night. And one person arrived, right? And the minister's saying, oh, why do I have to give this talk? There's only one person here. But he went ahead and did it. And it turned out to be a great individual. I've forgotten who it was. But a very, very key individual. And that one talk was the key point for that person's transformation. So when you're in doubt about something and you can't find the good for yourself, perhaps it is that you are a part of someone else's tapestry of good. So we see that these 3 princes of serendip, around whose faculties of experience and deep comprehension this word serendipity evolved, remind us to take good advantages of our God spaces and to look within for the greater good and to look to the side for that treasure that perhaps you were not looking for. I want to clarify this for you because it's such a subtle thing. When I came to New York, my intention was just to come here for and to handle what seemed to be my ex was trying to take my apartment from me. So I came back to take care of this, knowing within myself that perhaps something else, knowing how God is, that perhaps something else was really going on. But anyway, I was handling business, taking care of business, coming back and thinking, then I'll go right back to California, and there I'll be, and I'll pick up my clientele and just continue. So it was going to be a short trip. So I came and took care of things, and then Hank was in town, and Hank very spontaneously to me one day asked me to come and meet a group of friends who were into science of mind, saying maybe they'd like to work with a practitioner or whatever. And I just went along very easily, thinking, whatever, I'm open. So I go with that in mind to meet the friends, and who do I meet? Reverend Steve, who asked me to take over his clients, take over the office, and the whole process of what has now evolved began totally in the most unsought for good. But the mind had this in mind. The divine mind, that super mind, knew this. It had gone before and established this whole scenario. And my invitation to become a part of this was come over and meet some friends, right? So keep your eyes open for those jewels. Well, you can't miss them when they show up, right? So let's do a meditation now. And on this great Independence Day, let us within the within, in that place of the Most High, declare our freedom from nearsightedness, fixity, routine, and any entrapment in approval-seeking activity for lower laws, lower mandates of law and order. We recognize the radiant life, law, and high order of divine design, and we breathe the breath of infinite life magnitude, awareness, spontaneity, newness, and independence of the highest order of being. We let ideas of rigidity fly to the heights and lights of heavenly dissolvement now. And right now we declare the absolute spontaneous presence of radiant increase right where each one of us has been desiring it most. And we marvel at it. And we give thanks to the magnificent, unlimited splendor of the divine architect of being, right now manifesting serendipitous increase, enriching each one here with new joy, splendor, and freedom of being. God is happening. And so it is. I'd like to read in your treatments. You'll find a treatment. Let's speak it out loud together, knowing the power of our words. I am that I am, and I always recognize the divine plan operating its grand scale of good in my life on visible and invisible levels, seen and unseen, above, beyond, and below. A super sense of divine realities and oneness with all now surges through my being. I see all persons, places, and things as a part of one great and divine whole, interrelating, interweaving, and interconnected. A magnificent tapestry of harmonious being. I recognize others as God's activity in my life from near to far, and they recognize me, always showing up at the right and appointed time, always delivering the gift of good increase. As I richly bless the whole, I, in turn, am empowered and freed. I never fall for appearances, yet recognize the ever-present divine will, subtly doing its thing for me and all. I have the talent of joyous expectancy now, as I perceive the majesty of divine design, right now accelerated in its power, and bringing forth another glorious demonstration in, through, and by means of me. God's good is the absolute through line of my life, and so it is. So in this moment, I declare there is only one power, one presence of perfect healing, absolutely wondrous, perfect manifestation that is now moving in and through and by means of each individual. I know that each is a power and a light unto being, one with God, one with the all in their unique, irreplaceable, special way. I know that each is recognized in this universe to be a song of great measure and life, integral and irreplaceable in the entire tapestry of this magnificent universe. All there is the presence and power of the One. And so I declare that whatever each one may be desiring or needing right here at this moment is now being wonderfully supplied them by that ever personal, infinite all in marvelous and wondrous ways. That good is already made manifest, already showing visible evidence of self-existent cause and beingness. So I declare, whether it be in the area of health, wealth, happiness, whatever area it might be, divine substance is now taking the form of perfect good, more than enough to meet every need and open every doorway to perfect progress and movement. And so it is.